Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening or good morning. I know we have a truly global audience, which is fantastic. And I know some of you are watching the recording. Thank you for joining us. And today, the topic is JP and Eric discuss the importance of creating and using your document. And we created today's Zoom a couple of days ago. JP and I had a call scheduled to talk about another Zoom that we're doing. And out of that, I shared with him that I really want to learn more about the document. There's certain parts of it I just wasn't quite understanding. And he and I don't remember which one said it to the other, but we decided, why don't we just do a Zoom? And maybe there's people in the community that have similar questions that I do, or would like to learn more about creating your document and using your document. And so that's how we created this. And so JP, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm really good. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Now I know you're over on Maui and you live on Maui. So maybe you can just give us just a quick little update on what's going on in Maui right now.
Well, quick little one. I've been in a kind of a whirlwind. I've just surrendered to this call of support, very similar to you, Eric, which I was reminded of as soon as I saw your face the other day when fires happened in California. It was California, right?
Yeah, California. The Camp Fire was the one that I was with the disaster.
Oh, right. Yeah, so just like that's never been my thing before, but suddenly after a couple of days of wandering around, I've just said I'm going to start helping, and then it's been a whirlwind. My friend and I have raised almost $1 million in 2 or 3 weeks. And now we're trying to figure out how to not get a $500,000 tax bill and set up a 501c3 and start giving this money away to people who need it. So there's been a lot of logistics and conversations and on the phone, long days, but filled with spirit and learning a lot and growing. So yeah, I come to you this morning having spent time with my document, having spent time in that conversation about Maui, and having spent time in conversation with my community about things that we have coming up. So it's 10 a.m. and I've been working since 4:30 a.m. So I'm on fire. I'm ready to dive in with you.
Awesome. Steve just sent me a text. He's trying to get on. So I'm just sending him the link.
Grandpa Steve.
And so
how do you Zoom?
So JP's helping out with the Maui fires, and that's something I've experienced with. And so we've been collaborating on some of the stuff with the Maui fires through some connections. So thank you for taking the time today to be with everybody. And I want to create a context for what we're doing today. So we are all here, at least I'm here, because of this book, The Ultimate Coach, and written by Amy Hardison. And so as part of our community, you might be here right now, brand new. You found out about this Zoom live or the recording somehow, some way you're here. You might not even have the Ultimate Coach book. So this is the book that we're going to be talking about, an idea in this book called The Document. And the way Steve Hardison, that's who this book is written about, advises you to read the back of the book first, and then read the first 2 pages of the book and read the book about you. So if you haven't done that, I encourage you to do that. And this book creates the possibility of transformation for the price of a $20 book. And so in the book, there's an idea about creating a document, which for me, when I was introduced to the idea, JP, of a document a little bit less than 2 years ago, I had never heard of that before. I'd heard of affirmations. I've heard of goal setting. I've never heard of a document. So it was new to me, and I've done the best I can with what I've learned about it from the book and from some folks that I've learned from as far as how to create the document. But I still have some questions, and you have a lot of experience working with Steve and the document. And so I'm excited to have a conversation with you about that. And so why don't we start off and share with us a little bit about how you got connected to Steve and started your document journey. Why don't we start with that?
Yeah, how I got connected to Steve. I think I emailed him because my coach Rich Litvin was working with him at the time, and I was just like, who's coaching my coach? This guy seems pretty cool. And I reached out and said hi. And I always remember his response, which was, "We should speak." And I was like, shit, okay. It's just creating reality. And I said yes. And then we started to connect personally. And yeah, and then we met in person in London. And I've had I mean, everybody experiences Steve in a similar and different way, right? But I just have had this sense like I'm meeting an aspect of myself since the day that I met him. And I've been just following that. You know, I see so much of his greatness as a projection of my own possibility. And that's why I continue to, you know, seek out his coaching and mentorship. I'm finding myself in his expression in ways that I continue to find that in ways that I don't expect, in new ways all the time. I mean, right up to today, it's been, I don't know, 10 years or so since we connected. And so the work of the document was essentially, you know, we sat down for the beginning of our 100-hour agreement, and said, I don't really teach, but there's one thing that I'm going to teach. Then the rest of what we do is just going to be organic, and it's going to come from what happens. And it was this process, this really, really actually in-depth process that was a distillation of his life experience and self-creation and creating being. That, yeah, okay, we did it for the first few sessions, but for the next 2 years, that's what we were doing, right? We were just going deeper and deeper into that. So there's the base process, but then there's like the nuances and the subtleties, and what does that mean, and how does it work, and how do you bring it to life as a way of being? And that has continued to this day, you know, in different ways when we connect. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Steve just joined the Zoom, and so I'm going to bring him on with
Bring
you
him in
here. And so let's see here. Steve, I'm going to make you a co-host. So Steve, if you can see if you can accept that. Okay, perfect. Co-host. And then let me see if I can bring you on with JP and I. So that's strange. Let's see here. Remove all spotlighted videos. I thought it was going to let us bring us on. And Steve, are you able to unmute?
He might also need to turn on his camera.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll hear from Steve in just a little bit. So, JP, why don't you share a little bit about, to you, when you hear the words a document, what does that mean to you?
Absolutely nothing up until this morning, because I don't use the word document. Whenever Steve said it, literally up until now, I've just been like, yeah, okay, like he's kind of old school. He talks about like papers because he uses paper. I'm digital. I know what he means, but I don't really use that word because it's not really relevant for me. That's the way I was relating to it until this morning, because I'm like, I'm coming to talk about the document, so I'm not going to just have that word be irrelevant. I'm going to do with that word what I've learned to do with Steve, which is to create meaning, to create what it means for me, not to just try to find out what it means through something out there. And so for me, one of the ways to use my creativity is I engage in the meaning of word through etymology. And I looked up what is the history of the word document. And it comes from a word in Latin, docere, which means to teach. And so you used to have this verb to teach, and then it became like a lesson that was written down, and this lesson and the purpose of it was to teach. And so now I have the relationship to the document as this is a list of ideas that are here to teach me something about who I am. So when I say I don't have a document, I don't mean I don't have a collection or a list of ideas that I use regularly to create who I am. Of course, yes, I do. I just haven't up until today referred to it as my document. But now I've got a good relationship to it. So for me, my document is a list of ideas that I use as a tool to teach me who I am.
Awesome. So
that's
Steve
an upgrade.
Was able to hop on here. Steve, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
I don't know. I love you. Thanks, JP.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for being here.
So I wanted to check in, Steve, before we continue on. Is there anything you want to share today?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who's participating. And secondly, I'd like to say that there's not some certain way to do anything that I've ever done. It's creative. I find what works for you. I often say if I could take a white bar of soap and write across the window, and it would help somebody learn to be themselves, I would use the white bar of soap. If I could get an old buffalo that needs to fart, I'd get the buffalo that needs to fart if that helps somebody else. So I want you to know that the document, state of being, all of this, get it to work for you. I have no truth about any of it, except I know that being is everything. Thanks for letting me play.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. So let's continue on here, JP, and let's talk about the why behind the document. So, you know, one of the things that it hasn't quite clicked for me. So I learned to create a document. I have a document. But what's the why behind it? What does it do? What has it done for you?
Well, can we back up a little bit? Because if for me, one of the most powerful ways to create is through conversation. And what I mean by that is, to create myself powerfully, I have conversation with myself as a dialogue that occurs, and to create powerfully another person is a dialogue that occurs. And actually, Steve said he was going to come today, and my comment was, you will learn something. And then after that, I said, you will learn something about creating and using a document. And then after that, I was like, actually, we will learn something. Because the reason I said you will learn something is not because I know something that you don't know and I'm going to share it with you. It's because I know that when I'm in the act of creation, something is always born that has value. So there will be something that all of us will learn today, including myself, if we come at this, not with, I've got the answer and now I'm going to give it to Eric, but if Eric and I together co-create a why, because there's an infinite number of whys, and the why for me might not work for you. Or if the why works for the two of us, it might not work for everybody else. And so if you're open to it, I would love to start at what is the why to have a document right now that hasn't been enough to have it give you what you intuitively know it can give you? What is the why that you've been connected to that's like a little why, but not a big why for you?
So you're asking me for the why?
Yeah. And we can dance.
Sure. Well, when I think about statements for creation, you know, when I go back to launching my sales training company, this is going back 25 years ago.
Wow. And
I declared at 28, this is brand new. I'm like, I'm the top sales trainer in the world. Or I'm the top sales trainer of my generation. And I came from that place, and I was able to build an international training company coming from that place. So I've had experience with creating through language. Like, I'm the world's greatest husband, not as a comparison. I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else in this call, but I show up for my wife in that way. And so because I show up for my wife in that way, she might refer to me as her king, as an example. So that's showing up in reality out of how I'm showing up. So I'm connected to that. But then I think about something else like forgiveness. I'm not so confident about forgiveness. And so, in fact, Stephen, one of my sessions with him, said, forgiveness is your Achilles heel. So I get present to that. And it's like, so I think about, okay, if I could create forgiveness the way I create who I am as a sales trainer, and I haven't quite got there yet. So that's one thing we could talk about.
Sure. So how is the document relevant in that? How is having
Well, if I think about how do I create myself in forgiveness, I'm not creating myself in a similar way as I am as a husband, as an example.
So is the husband statement and the sales trainer statement in the document and the forgiveness statement in the document? Some of them, all three of them are.
Yes.
Okay. So what makes a document important? What's making it not as important for you as you know it could be? Like what is you, if you're what I loved about our conversation the other day is just how honest you were. And what struck me about it is you're probably not the only person in the community that has an idea of the document that's having that same kind of not full connection to the power of what this can have in your life. Right. And so there's a sense that there's more available. And so, like, what is the thought that comes up when you think about utilizing your document, let's just say, to become a more forgiving person?
I think, like, if I look at the two ideas about a sales trainer, which I have a lot of confidence in, and then I think about something like forgiveness that I've spent very little time in my life working on. So maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's I'm not good at it at this point, or I don't believe I can be good at it, or something. I mean, it's just different, like something that I know that I'm really good at something versus something that is like, that's, I would acknowledge it's a weakness at the moment, is how I think about it.
Yeah, when you're honest, you'll acknowledge that. But with that statement that I am, what's the statement around forgiveness? What's the declaration?
I'd have to go look.
Yeah, okay, there you go. So that's how present it is, right? Like, that's always a good indicator. I have to look it up. It's like a mission statement at a corporation that's in a folder somewhere, right? And I've been there, so I can totally relate. In fact, let me just say that my being there, Steve helped me to see, when I say I've been there, I have, in the past, I would wax and wane with my consistency and my relating to my document, utilizing my document. And I was expressing that to Steve as what I thought was a description of my life. And he helped me to see that I'm creating that by having that story. And then I created that I'm constant creation of who I am as my first statement. For years, that was the first thing out of my mouth every morning. And my relationship to the document went from waxing and waning to one of consistency. So it's like, the document is useful at every level, especially in relationship to itself. In fact, when I'm working with clients, it's always the first place that I look, which is what this conversation about for you and the whole community is like. What is the relationship to the document itself? So let me ask let me just put like two options out here. And if you're honest, which one feels more true? The document is something that I should do. The document is something I want to do.
It's probably should at this point.
Yeah, I love the honesty. So, this is what I call it, turning your want-tos into have-tos. Like, want-tos into shoulds. There's probably a point at which you wanted to, but it kind of became a should. And sometimes people do that with a to-do list. It's like, I want to do this stuff. The next day you wake up and it's like, oh, I have to do all these things. And suddenly it's onerous. And so what I'm interested in is reconnecting with like the genuine want and desire in the first place. Right. And that you already spoke to when you talked about, like, if you're present with a possibility on a regular basis, it will be expressed through you and you'll live it. You've shown that in your business. You've shown that with your wife as a husband. So the key is like, so the thing is, what is having me not do that, not have it that way? And it is I call it the meta relationship, like the relationship to the thing in the first place. And I smile because this is, to me, the most important thing. It's that right now, how am I relating to the thing in front of me? That is the tool, the self-development tool. People do this in all aspects of personal development. They go to a workshop, they learn a thing, and that's great, and it's helping them. And then suddenly they put it in the box of, am I doing that right? Because if I'm doing that personal development tool right, then I'm a good person, then I'm lovable, then I'm worthy. And it goes from being something that's useful to something that is some kind of metric saying that we're good enough. And so I am always looking for where I think I should be doing something, and I'm letting that go first and foremost. I champion my document, and for everybody, living in the domain of, I love that. It's so much fun. I want to do that. And anytime I have a thought that it's not that, that's the only thing I'm going to concern myself with. And so I want to make it enjoyable and entertaining. And the other piece to that is not just doing it in the ways that are fun for you, which means you got to play with this, just like Steve was saying, right? Like, if I could a bull that farts, I don't know where that metaphor came from, but like, I would get that. I'm going to document however I'm going to do it to have me do it. But the other thing with that is realizing that oftentimes my resistance to being in a relationship to the document is because it was born in a moment of truth where I was willing to see and speak my soul. And then I put it down on paper. And then the next day I go and look at that. And if I forget that that was an expression of my truth, and I instead think that that's something that I need to be and should be in order to be the good person or the best person that I can be, but I'm not, then it will be uncomfortable It's like, I'm not that forgiving person. I can't say that. I'd be lying if I said that. It's not true. It wasn't true yesterday, so I can't say that right now. Feels uncomfortable. And suddenly this thing that was born from your truth becomes something that's uncomfortable to look at, and you don't want to engage in it. I've had that experience plenty of times with my bookkeeping software. It's funny, when there's lots of money in the bank, it's like, I want to go and do my bookkeeping. And when it's kind of low, it's like, how about tomorrow? And it's the same kind of thing with a relationship to a document. And so if I look at these ideas as ideas of things that I should be or need to be, or I have to have been yesterday or this morning or 5 minutes ago in order for me to speak it, and if I speak it and I haven't been, then I'm out of integrity. That's not a comfortable relationship with that thing. So for me, I want to relate to my document, not as a history of what I have been, and not even a definitiveness about the future of what will be, but as something that I can read as an access point to being now here. When I use the word being, I only and always mean now here. And so, as I say, it's not the affirmation of 1776 that got the independence. It was the Declaration of Independence, right? In 1776, Declaration of Independence, not affirmation of independence. It's literally a creation right now, right here. And you already kind of get this, but I'll say it for everybody. Why do you want a set of ideas that have some consistency to them, some stability to them, that you're present with on a regular basis in the creation of now here? Well, it's kind of like if you have an axe and every time you go to the tree, you hit a different spot. It's going to take a long time to chop that thing down. But if you take that axe and you hit it in the same spot every single time, it's going to come down faster. In that same way, if you take the same idea, like I'm the best sales trainer, I'm the best sales trainer, I'm the best sales trainer, it's like chop, chop, chop. So you want to have these set of ideas that are born from your truth, born from soul, that are an expression of the truth of who you are, that you can come to on a regular basis over and over and over again, not as something to measure up against, but as a doorway. That's the way I think about it. For me, this document is a doorway. And every time I speak it, I step through that into that way of being. And there's a background gravity and vacuum trying to pull me out of it. In fact, even if all I have to do is go to sleep and I'm like, I'm somewhere, I wake up over here. And how do I get back into that way of being? I speak the document and I come back through. And so for me, what does that look like in the morning? It looks like my journaling, which I do for memorization. I use a mnemonic to keep me present to every word. And it's a kind of the short version of it. And then I finish that, and then I close my eyes and I speak it into a recording. And then it's recorded, and I'm kind of techie, then I have it transcribed and I give it to the AI and I have it tell me what's new about this based on the last 35 days that you've got on record of me speaking that. And I have Siri read it back to me, and I put it in Alexa, and I create t-shirts with aspects of it, and I put stickers on my window, and everything in my life becomes an expression of these ideas, so that my environment feeds back into the ideas that are in the document. And I'm living in this soup of possibility that lives in the language of this document. And so why do I do all those things? Because it's fun, and not because I'm trying to measure up, because I'm just creating beauty. So it's important to me because it's fun. It's important to me because it's fun, because there's joy in it. And if there's not joy in it, then I guess the two things that we're creating right now, it's because, number one, it's become a way of measuring yourself that doesn't feel good. Or number two, it's because you're trying to do it the right way instead of looking for ways to have it be your way that are enjoyable.
Yeah, I'll tell you what else is coming up for me when I think about like forgiveness. And I think about how I look at where I could be forgiving. And then that just seems like some uncomfortable conversations. It seems like work, I'm not opposed to work, but just, I guess it's maybe something to work on is to be okay with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And, my life is very much set up in a way where, there's a lot of comfort in my day. When I'm doing what I'm doing, I'm not really dealing with things that are uncomfortable. When I think about forgiveness, that seems like something that, it's kind of like when you have a tough conversation, you need to have it, and then you have it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like awesome.
Yeah. After. Yeah.
Yeah. After. Beforehand, it's scary.
Yeah.
So I guess it's like, it's also living a certain way for I'm 52. So for 5 decades, I've lived a certain way, and I'm really in this period of change, especially since, starting being involved in the being movement. And it's letting go of, the old me is really, but the old me is comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
even if it wasn't what I wanted or whatever. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's getting into it, knowing like if I do the document the way that Steve's teaching, that it will create transformation, and like getting into like wanting that versus,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So you're helping me create even more nuance around this resistance to the document that's born from like fear because you're measuring yourself against it and feeling like not enough. But another aspect of it is, I know that in order for me to be that which I have declared, that is going to be uncomfortable work. And so even just presencing yourself to a particular declaration, you might say it and then it might get uncomfortable, not because you're afraid you're not that, but because it leads to actions that are going to be uncomfortable. But what we're talking about now is the active expression of another one of the big reasons for me to be present with a document on a regular basis. In fact, it may be the most exciting reason for me. I may get the most joy from this, and that is, I call it a psychological exfoliant. To speak the truth of who I am will have my mind tell me where it believes that's not true. And so if I say I am forgiving and free, boom, I'm at my table yesterday afternoon, sitting with my wife. We had a little argument. She apologized to me. I said thank you, and I didn't apologize to her. Right? It's like, whether that's forgiveness or not, what happens is, by speaking a declaration that's an expression of the pure truth of who I am as love, counter narratives will come raining in. And if I don't want to hear about why I'm not a great person and not the person I know I can be, it's like, well, then good luck getting better. It's like, I'm going to sign up for the gym. I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to get a smoothie and stand at the smoothie bar. And it's like, no. The point is to actually face the resistance and be uncomfortable. The growth comes through that. So, I quote this almost in every talk I do. Nietzsche says, the strength of a person's spirit would then be measured by how much truth they could tolerate, or to what extent they must have it muted, sweetened, diluted, disguised, or falsified. So when I sit down to write my declarations in the morning, I look forward to hearing what Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way, calls blurts, counter thoughts. That's not true. Arguments in my mind. And when I do, it's like, pause, change pages. What's that about? Let me get that out. Let's find out what's all the stuff that I'm afraid of. It's almost like the most value in speaking a declaration is to find out what part of your mind doesn't believe that it's true, so that then you can meet that gently, not in a hurry, with forgiveness, work through it. How's that land?
Yeah, it's powerful.
Cool. What else would you love to know? Or do you think people, maybe we open it up to questions, unless there's something you've got in your mind?
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of folks on here. There may be some people that have some questions about your document. If you want to type in the chat a question, we can take some questions, maybe even have you come out live, or we'll just have you type the question in if you want to do that. And what would you say is the first step if somebody's gets inspired today to say, okay, I want to create a document, what would you suggest their first step be?
Well, I mean, this is what, obviously Steve teaches in his work, and what I teach a lot of this too. So I'll give you the short version. And it's like, you can go 100 miles deep with each of these pieces. But the short version is start with the document you're already living, but not on purpose. What's the habit of ways of thinking to yourself? Like, you've got the conscious creation, Eric, of I am the greatest salesman on earth. I don't know if that was what it was, but I like that for you. Right. So that's like a habit of thinking that you live out. We've also got habits of thinking that we didn't put there ourselves, right? And so becoming aware of what all those are, creating a huge inventory, and then going through this beautiful process of forgiveness. And people do it different ways, but the essence of it is, what is your way of creating at least a momentary experience as to the falsity of that habit of thinking, such that in your heart, in that moment, you are literally in touch with your innocence and yourself as love. You see through the illusion. Right? The work of Byron Katie is beautiful for this as well. Michael Singer's Letting Go. I mean, choose your tool, but there's a moment, and it's in every spiritual tradition. There's a moment where the heart is free. And so in that moment of freedom, I call it conception. There's an ask of spirit, of God, of intuition. There's a sentence stem of some kind. What's actually true? Who am I really? Who I really am is, and then boom. If you listen, that's prayer, ask and listen, you'll hear words. And as soon as you hear words, you might also hear, well, that's not really it, nor should I write it. Just write that shit down. Get it down. And iterate over and over and over again. I don't care if it's 500 statements, it's probably about the number that I did in the first time through it. Because it's not about getting the right information. It's about iterating the experience of identification of habit, of thinking, liberation from that habit, connection with the truth within you, giving voice to that and capturing those words. Then you're going to have a lot of ideas. And guess what? You get to be creative. You're an author. You're authentic through authorship, through creating, through writing. Take those ideas, play with them, distill them, have it be fun, make it beautiful. And make it small enough that you can hold it in the palm of your hand, such that you can be present with it on a regular basis. Don't worry about getting it right. Get it beautiful, get it fun, get it something that fills you with spirit. And and live it in the world through presencing it, allowing action to come forth from it.
Before we take the next question, originally, what JP and we came on the call this week to discuss a training on the document that JP is going to be doing for the community. And out of that discussion, this got created of what what JP and I are doing right now. So JP and I are going to come back next Friday, and we're going to do this again. It's not going to be a discussion though between he and I. JP is going to do a special training for our community, and I just put the Zoom link in the chat. And if you want to come back again next Friday, we'll do another training. We're going to do some Q&A right now. And then it's at the same time as today. So whatever time it is right now for you, whatever time, it's 1 o'clock where I am. So whatever time, and it'll indicate that in the Zoom link, and we'll do some more training. But we do have some questions. And so Stuart says, could you elaborate a bit more on self-forgiveness process?
Yeah, we're going to do that in depth, more depth. I say I went about 6 inches here today. Next week we'll go about 6 feet, and that's probably in the training and program that we have through the Being Movement is probably 6 miles, right? So there's all different depths. But let me just see what else can I say about the forgiveness process right now. I guess I'll say my declaration is coming to mind, which I speak every morning. I am forgiving and free. Forgiving. Forgiving means literally, etymologically, to give greatly. And so starting to get in touch with forgiving as an act of giving. You're giving something away, I think, is a new way of thinking about forgiveness, probably for a lot of people, that can invite a new experience and a new relationship to it. So what would it be like to give away an idea, a judgment, a belief about yourself? We'll say more next week.
And I'll add one piece to that. when Steve and I worked together, one of the things that I shared with him was this thought that I had in my head that I don't fit in. And so it was like, the way I describe it is we have a set of foundational ideas that are like running our life. And so I'm walking into a room, I don't fit in. I'm showing up at a party, I don't fit in. And Steve helped me recreate that with people love spending time with me. And it really made a profound difference in my life, because when I think about where did this thought come from, I don't fit in. And it's back when I was probably 6 or 7 or 8 years old. And it may have been true in that moment. I don't know if it was or wasn't, but I was living into a thought from when I was a little kid that's no longer who I am. I have one of the deepest Rolodexes on the planet. I have great connections in countries all over the world with, all of you on this call and with my company and all. I'm blessed with so many amazing people in my life. And I have relationships with people like Steve Hardison and JP and other folks. And so it wasn't an accurate reflection at all, but I was still living into that idea. And so if you do want to work on your document, if you just think about, what are these ideas that you have about yourself? Like, I'm not good enough, or I don't like the way that I look, or I don't like my body. And so now you're walking around the world and you're operating from that place. And one of the things that I love to do when I'm working with people, I worked with this gentleman yesterday, he's in India, and he was operating from really that he was inadequate, to just keep it real simple. And the guy's a genius. I told him that. I said, you're a genius. And he had a reaction, because probably nobody had ever told him that. And he wasn't seeing himself as that. But he is that. And I said, you're 11 yeses away from the life of your dreams. And I don't have time to get into that distinction. But the bottom line is, he shifted so much because he realized he's so close to creating what he wants. And so we have these ideas that we're living into, and I just see it in myself and I see it in others. And so this is an opportunity for you to acknowledge your genius. And one of the things that's so amazing about Steve is he'll say to me things like, you lead like Lincoln. And the first time he ever said, he's talking about Abraham Lincoln. The first time he ever said that, it was like completely blowing my mind. Like, I probably had a facial reaction to that. And he sees that in us. And that's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing to see, like, the best in all of us. And that's why, we have this community, because we want to learn, we want to become who we are. And so Steve, thank you for how you create me and all of us. And just, he does that all day, every day, always. It's just like amazing. All right, well, let's see if we have some more questions here. Lisa says, I started my I am statement with the fruit of the spirit, a biblical passage. Then I expanded on each of the fruits. Okay, awesome. She's sharing something she's doing. Elizabeth says, what an awesome gift to help people elevate their being through document creation. Thank you both for what you're doing, and everyone for your willingness to commit to be. Awesome. How can you create your document and your being help you create something tangible in your life, like more money? Okay, so he's asking, how can my document help me get more money or better health?
Two ways, I think, at the core of it. So I go pretty deep into this in our training, but like for me, the I am statement is the beginning of self-creation. And then there's other aspects, because we're living out not just our identity, but we're living out and expressing the being of what we believe the world is, what we believe we have. So I also have I have statements. I have what is statements. And really, it's about creating an idea. So if I want to make money, if I want to have money, then I want to be that I have money before I have money. So one of the things that I declared for a while was I have all the money in the world, for money is liquid and it flows in abundance. And that's a created state of being. And I promise you that when I went out into the world, being that I have all the money in the world and that money flows like money is liquid and flows in abundance, that's what actually occurred for me. So having all the money in the world creates an experience. Doesn't mean that every dollar on the planet is, or in the country is in my bank account, but it's creating an experience that makes me relaxed around money, that makes me magnetic around money. So that's the thing. I think that's the most important thing, is creating a state of being of that which you desire to have, you already have, right? The other thing that occurs from that, and you've probably heard about this, is that the moment you have something, experience yourself as having it, your being that you have it, gratitude, boom, instant. So you don't have to try to be grateful. It just happens. So that you're experiencing gratitude, and gratitude is one of the most powerful ways to be in action. What happens when you receive? You just want to give. So you become the reciprocal expression of somebody that has money, and you show up in the world that way, which then affects the world, and you're more likely to receive money. Same thing can work with health. I have a declaration: I am the body of a god. I have a picture of Dionysus on my wall, a nude male photo drawing. And so that there's one God, right? But the idea that I am the body of a God, and when I walk into my gym to lift weights, I'm expressing that idea. I'm playing it out. And the form follows the being, because my action follows the being, and results follow action. So the other way that I would say is to have knowing who I am and knowing where I'm going. So if my goal is out there on the horizon and I know who I am, that's all I need to create anything, everything and anything, because I show up and I meet the world that's right in front of me, the person that's right in front of me, the place to walk that's right in front of me, the door, the phone, the email. I know who I am, and there's this thing that's right in front of me. We'll call it a circumstance, and there's where I'm going out there. And so I want to get there. This is here. I am this. What do? Boom, it's obvious. So the action to take in any moment is obvious when you know two things. You know who you are and where you're going. You know who you are, where you're going in any circumstance. Any email comes in. One really classic example that I share a lot is I know that who I am is I am a champion for everyone. That's who I am. And I know that I'm growing a business helping people to create things. And so all I do is open up LinkedIn, and I see what a lot of people might see, and what a version of me in the past might used to see as spam, and somebody trying to sell me some event. And I know who I am, I'm a champion for everyone. And I see that person, I see them struggling to try to get their result, and I just start helping them. Maybe if you'd say this instead of that, the people would engage more. It's like, oh, geez, this person's helping me. I'm actually helping them get what they want, not for me, but in general in their life. Or they say, hey, come to this entrepreneur event. And I say, I should be speaking at that event. Where does that thought come from? Where does the thought that I should be speaking at the event that somebody's trying to pitch me to come to, that's already, all the speakers already booked, come from? I know who I am, and I know where I'm going. And so you put anything in front of me, and an action is going to come out for me to take. And I am immediate action. That means there's nothing in the middle between me and action. So that's another declaration. So these things work together. I am forgiving and free. I am immediate action. I'm a champion for everyone. You be all this stuff. You know where you're going. You have a goal. You have an outcome that you're focused on. And you put anything in front of you, and action comes. So there's some how to create tangible things through being.
Thank you for that. I got a couple of additional ideas I want to share.
Please.
And I used to declare when I was younger, I'm not an investor. So I thought one day I put on my thinking cap and I go, okay, if I continue to not be an investor, I'm going to get to old age. I'm going to be broke. And so I just pulled out the word not. And then all of a sudden I started investing, and now my net worth is, I mean, we looked at my net worth then and where it is now, it's very different. One word. I recently created, I live to 121. So out of creating that, all of a sudden I started taking my supplements.
Yeah.
Because before I didn't need to take my supplements, because what does it matter? I'll get to whatever age. But I'm like, there's no way in my brain, there's no way to get to 121 without taking my supplements, without drinking my water. Like now I always got my water with me. And so
Yeah.
that the who do I need to be to live to 121? I got to be lean and fit. I got to take care of my health. And then, you know, for many of us on this call, your sex life's probably important to you. So it's like, who do I have to be in my relationship with whoever your partner is? With me, it's my wife. So being the world's greatest husband, you know, that helps my sex life, right? So if you think about, what do you want to create, right? I want more money. I want a better relationship with my boss. I want fill in the blank, right? And so really great question. Thank you for the question. All right. We're going to do one more question here, and then I'll give you any final thoughts, JP, that you want to share. Let's see here. Okay, Wolfgang, he is our leader that I know of in our community about breath work. He's a world guy all over the world helping people with breath work. And he wants to know if breath work is a part of your process.
Well, I would say that breath work is a practice that I will utilize as part of creating a state of being, but how I breathe while I speak my declarations, I would say, wasn't even in my mind until very recently. This year, my friend Stuart Pierce, friend, mentor, he's been doing the work that he does around the voice for over 50 years. And he has taught me the importance of speaking with what he calls your signature note, which is really about where your voice is coming from in your body when you speak. And of course, this does involve the breath. In fact, on my door of my studio, I have abracadabra, which is Aramaic for I create as I speak. I know that to inspire means to breathe in spirit. And so obviously the breath and speaking is a big part of speaking into creation. And on that note, by the way that it's relevant for sure, that breath is important in relationship to my document, in that speaking is particularly important in the creation of my document. Yeah, journaling's cool, listening to it's cool, but there is something specific in particular around actually using your voice, like allowing it to come out of your mouth. And it's also can be the most confronting thing. And something people find there are other ways of being with their document that's not actually verbalizing it and speaking it. And so giving breath to the words is how magic happens. I mean, so spell something out. Magic is speaking, right? And so for me, that's the deepest would say my relationship is like, how am I using my breath to create my voice in such a way where I'm speaking my document from my signature note? And I mean, you can go and check out Stuart Pierce's work to learn more about the signature note, but in essence, different tones of our voice come from different parts of our body. So if I'm speaking at this voice, which if you watch some of my older YouTube videos, you'll see me speaking at this tone. And that's my voice. I get vibration right around here when I speak at that tone. But when I speak from this tone, it's a deeper down, but more importantly than a lower tone is that in my body, when I'm speaking from this tone, my chest is resonating. And when the chest resonates, what happens is you get multiple tones happening at the same time. It becomes like a chord. And so it's got more energy to it. And not only that, but that resonance is also happening in your chest cavity. Guess what organ is there? Your heart. And so there's a feedback process with your words in the resonant with your heart when you're speaking these declarations. And especially when they're born from the heart, when you're speaking them from the heart, there's an amplification of the power and how they inform your being when you speak them in that way. But I would be very interested to learn more about what ideas Wolfgang has around breath in the process of speaking declarations.
Awesome, JP. Thank you for that great share. So a couple of final thoughts today. And one is, I want to make sure you guys know about our website, which is beingmovement.com. And when you go to the website, you scroll down a little bit, there's a place for you to enter in your information to get on our email list. And that's a great way to be notified of all the great things happening in the community. I also want you to know, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of beingmovement.com, There's a little button there for Facebook. And then there's one for LinkedIn. Did you know that we have a LinkedIn Being Movement group? And if you're on LinkedIn, we'd love to have you in there. And then we have our Instagram. Did you know that we have a Being Movement Instagram? We'd love to have you be on there and be commenting and liking and so forth on our Instagram. And then we have our YouTube channel. And we have new content every single week that comes out on our YouTube channel. We'd love to have you subscribe there. And then we have our podcast, and we have 2 new episodes now that get released every single week. And there's over 60 episodes in the can, 70. And you can find all that information there. Everything I just showed you, we provide for you totally free. So the Being Movement creates the possibility of transformation for a $20 book. You can get it on Audible or Kindle. We have some other services available as well, but there's so many great things that we offer for free, like our meeting that we had today. So we're going to come back together next Friday at the same time. And it's going to be, instead of an interview format, JP is going to do a training on the document. And I just put the Zoom link in the chat. We'd love to have you come back. And you can do that live or the recording. So when you register, if you can't make it, we'll automatically send you the recording. If you learned something today, type the word yes in the chat if you learned something. And JP, I want to provide you the opportunity to have the final share today. Anything that you'd like to share?
Sorry, I was trying to type yes here in the chat. I did learn a few things.
Eric, if you'd let me say something, I'd love to.
Awesome.
Let me go first so Steve can complete. If that's all right with you, Steve, I'd rather have you speak last.
That's good.
Penultimate and then the ultimate. Is that good? Yeah.
Yes.
It is. I watched Steve we did the document up front in the beginning, but I watched him over the 2 years relate to the document with a fervor and the joy of a child. That show up sometimes for a session and be out there in his garden, just almost like a mad professor, just going at it and writing and scribbling and journaling and just having so much fun with it. And it was that journey of growth in learning a relationship to self-creation that can be one that is joyful and life-giving. The practice itself, the play itself, that I think was the biggest reward of the work with Steve. Learning the tool is great, but learning that can be not work, but fun was the biggest gift. So I just want to share that with everybody so that you can see the possibility and really look forward to falling in love with this thing that could look like work, but it doesn't need to be. It can be the best part of your day. That's the best part of my day every day. So thank you so much, Eric, and thank you, Steve.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for everyone who's been here. I want to take just 1 minute to acknowledge JP and Eric. It was fascinating watching JP come and be with me and doing work. The level at which he prepares to be there, and then the download after he does whatever we do in a room. You know, we talk and then he creates things that are beautiful. And I told him early in, I said, JP, you are going to go down as one of the greatest philosophers that's ever been on the earth, including Aristotle, Socrates, etc. And I want you to know that his desire to serve and to create and to think is powerful. So I appreciate you, JP. I appreciate what you're doing in life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Eric, look at everything you just showed. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the stuff you've done. You've created all this, you've used people, but your leadership is off the charts, and I appreciate you. Final thing I'd say is, each of you that have been listening, there is no like trick here. It's like, just look at what you're thinking about and upgrade the thinking. That's the short version of it. You're like an ultimate GPS. What programs are you putting in the brain? And the document is to deprogram I'm no good to I'm magnificent. I love you all. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Steve. All right. Well, it was so much fun to be with all of you. JP, thank you for sharing your wisdom with me and with the community, and for being willing to come back again next week and share some more with all of us. You guys have a great rest of your day, great weekend. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.